Greetings and welcome to From the Basement. This video marks the start of my Unity series. Unity is a game engine that is available for free download from unity3d.com. It's a very powerful tool, but it can get quite complex, and to be honest, like all game engines, it's got its moments where you just really want to kick it to the curb. Overall, though, it is an excellent choice. Now, this video, I am starting off bare bones from the basic. Starting off with, how do we download this? If you already have a passing familiarity with Unity and how the editor window layout is set up, you might want to skip this video and go on to the next one. Otherwise, let's get started. As I mentioned, unity3d.com is where you will go to download Unity. Just go to the download link, and there it is right there. The current version, obviously, as of this video, is 4.5.1. If for some reason that you need to get older versions, there is a link here. They make it very small, light, very easy to miss, but there is a looking for an older version link here. And you can then go through and download any specific version of Unity that you need. For the most part, however, sticking with the most current version is the recommended action. Just get that downloaded and install it, and you're good to go. It's a fairly hefty download, so I'm not going to try and do that right now live. That would be crazy. Now, there are two versions of Unity. You have the Unity Free and Unity Pro. Now, for the most part, the Unity Free is good enough for most cases, especially if you're just learning. The primary features that you get with Pro are things like shadows, some of the more advanced pathfinding routines, reflections, a lot of graphical upgrades that will make a game look really nice. Don't get me wrong, you'll need Pro if you want a game that's, looks good. Like Blizzard's Hearthstone, for example. That would definitely require something like Pro to be able to make that. However, when you're just starting out, free is fine. Also, you can activate a 30-day free trial of Unity Pro at any time you want to see what kind of features you would normally get. As far as purchasing options go, you can purchase Unity Pro for $1,500. Now, as far as selling your game, you don't have to have Pro to sell your game. As long as you make, and I have not checked this recently, it may have changed, but as long as you make less than $150,000 per year in game-related revenues, you can use the free version. Once you have more than $150,000 per year, you must purchase Pro. I qualify that as a nice problem to have, to be quite honest. You can also go the license per month route, so maybe you don't have the cash to lay down $1,500, but you can lay down $150, maybe $300 for 4 months worth of work to do the final detailed work before publishing your game. That is always an option. The add-on licenses. Now, by default, Unity does come with the ability to publish to iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and Windows Store apps. Now, the Pro versions, again, just like Unity, the regular Unity Pro, do have some additional add-ons that you can use with that. But, again, you get the basics right off the bat. And you might be looking at some of these prices and thinking, well, goodness, if I want to publish a game on both, the Android and the iOS, and I really need the Pro features, I'm going to spend $4,500 per seat? Yeah, honestly, that's not that bad. The strongest competitor right now to Unity, I would say, would be the Unreal 4 engine, which seems to have a much better deal, at least up front. It's $20 per month plus 5% of revenues. If you don't have a lot of revenues, you'll end up paying a lot less using the Unreal 4 engine. If you have a lot of revenues, you'll end up paying a lot more with the Unreal 4 engine. So, price-wise, I wouldn't really say price should be the determining factor here. It's the engine. Which engine do you really need to use here? Like I said, you can get a lot done with the free version, though. Enough, if nothing else, to get enough of a game created and launch a Kickstarter if you wish to go that route. Now, if you're a student, you have another option. You can go to this education link here, go to a reseller near you. Studica USA if you happen to be in the USA. Otherwise, click on the appropriate link here. As I am based in the USA, we'll go with that one. And as you can see, you got a pretty nice discount. I mean, if you want to get all the things and get a Unity 5 Pro with Team License, Android Pro, Windows 8, BlackBerry, and iOS Pro, perpetual, commercial, non-watermark. This is not a crippled version that they're offering. This is the full, you can do what you want, go make your game with it version. And as you can see, granted, I don't know of too many students that can swing $2,000 for software, but there you go. If you have that ability, it is an incredible discount. Even if you don't want to go for the whole shebang, for $1,000, hold on. Here we go. For $1,500 instead of $3,000, you can get Unity Pro plus Android or iOS Pro, depending on which one of the mobile platforms you wish to target. So student pricing is really good. If you are a student, get it through here. Now I'm going to take a quick aside to talk to my students specifically at Johnson County Community College. Do not buy Pro for our classes. You will not need it. By all means, if you want to get it, go nuts. We have Pro in the labs. At no point in any of the classes will you ever be given an assignment where you must use Pro features. So, purchasing Unity Pro is not required for courses at Johnson County Community College in Overland Park. So, with that out of the way, let's assume that this has been downloaded and we need to start up Unity for the first time. Just find your Unity icon on the desktop, rev it up, and the first time through, it will most likely open up a window like this, the Unity Project Wizard. Now, you can configure it to either go directly into projects or always open this window, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Every Unity project, each Unity game requires its own project. The folder name doesn't really actually matter. After you create the folder, you can go back in and rename the folder, move it to your heart's content, whatever. Unity doesn't care, as long as you don't mess with the meta files inside of the folder. So the folder name itself doesn't matter. What does matter is that you can only create a project into an empty folder. That does matter. So I'm going to go to Create New Project. I will talk about asset packages in a future video, so for the moment I'm going to ignore those. By default, Unity wants to create your project as New Unity Project, or New Unity Project 1, 2, 3, 4, if it does already exist, in your Documents folder. What I usually do is I have on my C drive a Unity folder where I keep all of my project files. Now, if you are on a school computer lab, I would recommend that you either keep it in the Documents folder or create a new project to the desktop so that way it's easier to find. Remember, if you are on the JCCC computer labs, those things are reset and wiped nightly. Never assume that your project file will be there the next day. If you are on a home computer, again, I strongly recommend picking a directory to put all of your Unity projects in. Like I said, you have to do it in an empty project folder. I cannot select the Unity project folder. Notice my Select Folder button is grayed out. It must be an empty project. See, it even says select an empty project folder to create a project in. Now what I can do is just right click from here and say New Folder Demo. Now my Select Folder button is active. My current project location is updated here. Now by default, it's going to name your game whatever this folder name is. You can go back in and change that. One last thing, set up defaults for 3D or 2D. For now, let's leave that at 3D. Unity can handle 3D, and it's honestly best at handling 3D. They're working on the 2D. It's getting better. They have native support for it finally. But really, it was originally designed as a 3D game engine, but you can use it as 2D. So I'm going to hit create to get this project up. And I'm going to make sure that I'm on default here. There we go. Now this is most likely what you are seeing right now. And I'll talk about what I just did there in a moment. This is the default Unity window layout. It's a fairly standard layout. We have our pull-down menu bar up here with our semi-standard and not so standard assortment of items. We have a small toolbar here. This part here primarily used for manipulating and moving objects. These three buttons here are for playing, pausing, and advancing for one frame in your games. And then we have all of our various windows that make up the editor. Now these windows are terrible, and I absolutely love it, because you can take these tabs, left click, hold, and drag, and tear these window frames off. See, it's terrible. Okay, I'll stop with the puns. I'm sorry. But still, it's a really great interface of being able to tear these things off and reposition them as you want. Now keep in mind, for all of these, for manipulating the windows like this, you must always use the tab. If I try and grab this guy by the just the regular gray bar here, I can't re-hook it back into anything. I have to grab the tab. Grab the tab, there we go. Now I can add it back in as a tab here, or maybe I want it over here, or maybe I want to split screen this way, or maybe I want to split screen this way. Maybe I don't want my inspector over here, maybe I want my inspector over there, so on and so forth. As you can see, you just have complete total control over how you set up your windows. You can also right-click on these tabs and go to Add Tab, and you have a selection of tabs that you can add in. So I could add in my animation window, I could add in the profiler window, which doesn't do me any good because I don't have Pro on this copy. I could add in another game window. You're not limited to just one window of a specific type. So I've got, now I've got two different scene windows that are independent of each other, mostly. As I can change the positioning. The camera's still slide around, but I can at least change the look orientation. Now I've got two different game windows that I can have open, although honestly that one's a little bit less useful because the game windows are shared in the same. So on and so forth. You can really customize the layout to how you want it to be. Now, let's say that you've completely screwed up your layout, like I have here, and you want to get back to something a little bit more logical and sane. You can click on Default here, and they've got a series of things already defined. We've got a 2x3 layout, which I've never really quite understood that one. We have a 4 split, which could be useful for turning these three into orthographic views and this one into a perspective. Deal more with that in a future video. We've got our default 4-view custom, which you can't really see, but I've got another screen open. Dual screen, I'll come back and talk about that in a moment. We've got a tall layout. We've got a wide layout. Now, wide layout is probably what I will stick to for most of my videos. But now let's say that you've got a layout that you really like, that you've customized, and you want to save it. Now maybe instead of having the game right there, I've got the game window over here, and I don't see a console, so let's go over to Window, and where are you? Console, there you are. Oops, and open another window. And I want my console like that. So let's say this is the layout that I want, and I want to save this layout. Well, what I can do is I can come over here and I can say, Save Layout. Call this Meep. And now I've got the Meep layout. So if I switch back to default, and then switch back to Meep, I've got my layout saved. And if at some point I decide that I do not need this, I can go to Delete Layout. Now be careful, there's no confirmation on this next part. So if you delete something you didn't mean to, too bad, so sad, it's gone, there's no undo. So be sure you're clicking on the right thing. Now if you completely screw things up and delete one of the default ones and you want it back, there is a revert factory settings where it'll just say, alright, that's it, reset everything back to how it was when you first installed it, at least as far as the layouts are concerned. How I usually work is with a dual screen setup. Once you go dual screen, it's really hard to go back to using a single monitor. Now, you can't really tell because the recording is not hitting both screens, but off to the other side, I have this window up on my other monitor. Just gives me a lot more working space over here for editing things inside the scene view, and some more space on the inspector here. Now, the failed to load, that's for a window that I currently don't have the code loaded in for. Some of my programs have some add-ons, either that I've written or somebody else has written, that operate in different windows. And, well, I don't have that code loaded right now, so it says failed to load. I'm not going to get rid of that because I kind of need that to stay there. Now, most of the time, like I said, I will remain in the wide format, but occasionally I will go back to that dual window format when I need to do some more intense editing. All right, now there's just a few more things I want to cover before we end up this video. One of them is that under Window, you have a couple of windows that you can't get from doing the right-click Add tab. Specifically, the Animator, Light Mapping, Navigation, and Console being the big ones. But perhaps the biggest one is the Asset Store. This is probably one of the absolute biggest benefits to using the Unity game engine, is that they have this asset store. It's been running for a long time, and anybody can upload stuff here for people to buy and use. There are some truly amazing stuff on here. And it's worth checking in on a daily basis because they sometimes have some pretty good sales. Like this, on this particular day that I'm recording the video, the Daikon Forge, why they named this after a daikon, I'm not entirely sure. It's a very yummy veggie, especially in stews. But Daikon Forge is on sale today. Normally $75, on sale for $26.25. I have to admit that is tempting. But there's just all kinds of things. You know, Shader Forge, which is an incredible node-based shader editor, very similar to the type of thing you would see in the Unreal Engine. We've got Playmaker, which is a phenomenal state machine. All sorts of things in here. Behavior Designer. If you really miss Kismet style scripting, you've got Uscript that you can use. It's just tons of stuff. And more importantly, there's also free stuff that's of equal quality. So the asset store is your friend. When you need an asset, come here. Chances are you can at least find a free one to use as a placeholder, even if it's not precisely the one that you want. Now, there's just two packages that I am going to point out right now that I consider must downloads. As soon as you get Unity, get these packages. The first step, of course, is going to be to create a Unity account. You must create a Unity login because it associates all of your downloads with your account, so that way you don't have to go back and re-find them. The first one, it's easiest to search for. And just do a search for sample assets. Hurry up and wait while it contacts the asset store. Now this one comes from Unity Technologies. Make sure that you are getting this from Unity Technologies. It says the publisher right here. And the sample assets beta is a really good asset pack. Besides just simply, the finished and fully functional vehicles and some prototyping objects, the character controllers in this asset pack just beat the pants off the character controller that comes default with Unity. I mean, just hands down, there's no comparison. Don't even bother with the default character controller in Unity. Download the sample asset pack. Use their camera rigs. Use their controllers. It's just infinitely better, I promise. The other one, which is usually easiest to find by going, going to Home and then going to Top Free, because it's almost always in this top 10, is the Terrain Assets, again, from Unity Technologies. So you can see here 12 trees, 12 bushes, 6 grasses, and 22 terrain textures. This will pretty much solve all of your terrain needs right here. So those two asset packs, Terrain Assets and Sample Assets Beta, both from Unity, are must download items. Now, there's a whole bunch of other free ones that I think are really good and worth downloading, but we will cover those in a different video. Final thing I want to cover is preferences for the Unity editor itself. If we go to Edit and then Preferences, we will get our basic preferences window. Now remember at the very start I said that you can configure whether or not Unity goes straight into a project or brings up the project wizard. Here is where you do this. I have Always Show Project Wizard enabled because of my usage situation. I work on a lot of different projects and there's no real guarantee from moment to moment as to which project I want to open. So I always want it to ask me, which project do you want to work on? If your usage situation is such that you're pretty much only working on one project and only very rarely switch, you might want to disable that. So that way when you start Unity, it will automatically load in the last project that you used. Now, the only other tool that setting I'm really going to go over is on external tools. And that is, this is where you set your Android SDK location and your external script editor. Now, both of these won't really come into play until much later in the video tutorial series. But by default, this external script editor is going to be set to MonoDevelop built in. Now, MonoDevelop is okay, but its autocomplete isn't very good. You will have much greater programmer efficiency using Microsoft Visual Studio. Whether it's the full version or the Express version, doesn't matter. I would say use Microsoft Visual Studio. Especially since Microsoft bought out the company who did the add-on to allow you to do debugging from Visual Studio. So it's going to get even better in a couple months. So yeah, Visual Studio is good. Note for students. If you are at Johnson County Community College, we are a member of the Academic Alliance, and you can get Visual Studio Professional for free from Microsoft, and you can use it for commercial purposes. So, at least if I read the license agreement correctly. So, if you're a student, check that out. If you are not a JCCC student, I would go and ask your college to see if they are a member of the Academic Alliance and whether or not you also have access to the developer tools for free. And with that pretty much covers the basics of the window layouts and everything. Now there's obviously a lot more detail into how to use Unity, but I don't want these individual videos to get too long, so we're going to break here. And on the next video, we're going to take a look at how to navigate through the scene view here and just the bare bone basics of putting objects in and manipulating them. And so, until then.